As we head towards the Breeders' Cup Classic, if you're not a member of NYRA Bets, now's the time to sign up. Using that promo code BC19, you get a $25 risk-free bet in either the Breeders' Cup Juvenile or this Breeders' Cup Classic, as well as matching up to $200 of your initial deposit and play. Details at nyrabets.com. It's time for the big one, the final Breeders' Cup race of 2019, the Breeders' Cup Classic. And it's the big matchup. You've got the 3-year-olds, but you've also got the older horses. And those older horses include the morning line favorite, Mckinsey. Mckinsey was a major disappointment last time out in his final prep for the Breeders' Cup in the Awesome again. He stalked, but he didn't pounce. And he lost to the very big-priced Mongolian groom who likes to travel around the country. He was 25 to 1. He somehow wired the field. Now, I don't know if he has the speed to be a speed in this Breeders' Cup Classic. We'll see. We'll see how contentious this pace gets, because the pace is a bit murky. And I think Mongolian Groom will try to use his speed again, but can Mckinsey bounce back from that effort? And I also want to mention Higher Power was a distant third. He was coming off a super effort, the best effort far and away he's ever run when he won the Pacific Classic, and he stumbled to start, which took him out of his usual forward position. I think he'll be more forward in this Classic. And if he duplicates the Del Mar race to 1.25 miles, he can win here. But where did it come from? And can he do it again? But a bit of an excuse in the race we just watched when he stumbled at the start. But which Mckinsey will show up? Because if the Mckinsey that won the race we're looking at now, the Whitney, arguably the strongest handicap race outside the Met Mile, along with the Met Mile this year, he's going to be a handful. And we'll talk about the 10 furlongs in a moment. He pushed the early pace. He sat back. He stalked. He finished. He was extremely good in here. And he beat Uchida, and he beat Vino Rosso. Vino Rosso did not run a good race in here. We'll talk about Vino Rosso in a minute. We'll talk about Uchida in a minute. But let's talk a little Mckinsey. There's a lot of talk that Mckinsey can't get the 10 furlongs in the Classic. And he certainly couldn't get it in last year's Classic when he got beat a pole. But that was just his second start off a layoff. And he did only lose by a nose to Gift Box in the Santa Anita handicap earlier. And he ran a figure of 102 that day, but it's not his good figure. And I think there is an argument that he's better going shorter. 7 furlongs a mile around one turn, the 1.8 miles in the Whitney. I don't want to throw this horse out, and I don't want to be a wise guy that says he can't win this race. I think he's the horse to beat in here. I think you're going to see a more aggressive ride by his new pilot, Joel Rosario, but still, I think you have to be concerned about his loss in the Awesome again. And I'm going to look to be a little bit of a wise guy in this race. So while I'm going to put Mckinsey second, and I think he's a bit vulnerable, I do think he's the horse to beat. But a lot of people like Code of Honor, and a lot of people like Vino Rosso, and I can understand why. Code of Honor has really come to hand for his trainer, Shug McGahee. And if he can take a step forward off of his Travers and his Jockey Club Gold Cup, he might be the horse to beat. Now, I disagree with anybody that thinks that Vino Rosso shouldn't have come down in this race, because he did repeatedly foul Code of Honor in here, and Code of Honor had gone by him. It wasn't one of those cases, they could have gone around again. No, I think he was winning this race if Vino Rosso didn't foul him. I don't want to discount the effort that Vino Rosso ran, because he ran very well in here. But Code of Honor was better, and I think he's the better of the two horses, and I also think he has more upside. The Vino Rosso that ran in the Jockey Club Gold Cup, he can win this race. The Vino Rosso that ran the Whitney at Saratoga, he can't win this race. But the Vino Rosso that ran the Santa Anita handicap, not the Santa Anita handicap, excuse me, that was the old Hollywood Gold Cup, earlier this year at Santa Anita, he can win. He was wide that day, he attended the pace, he still finished. That was an excellent effort. Still, I just don't trust him. I don't like his effort in the Whitney, and I think Vino Rosso is the horse that's going to be a shorter price in this race that I'm going to try to beat. I understand he has people that like him, and I understand he can win this race, but I prefer Code of Honor of the two horses, and I think that Code of Honor and Mckinsey are more likely to win this race than Vino Rosso, who's going to be in the 4 to 1 range of his morning line, and I don't want him in this contentious race at the price. A horse that's 6 to 1 in the morning line, a lot of people like, is Elate. And we'll take a look at Elate's personal ensign. And from a speed figure standpoint, if she runs her race, she ran the personal ensign, she has a chance to win it, but she's still not good enough. Now, I know a lot of people think, well, she's a 1.25 mile horse, and that's why they're running the Breeders' Cup Class at 1.25 miles. All right, good luck with that opinion. I don't think she's better at 1.25 miles. I believe the best 2 races she's ever run were races she finished second in the personal ensign of 2019 and 2018, her best figures. She beat 2 subpar fields at a very short price in the Delaware handicap. And yes, she ran well to win the Alabamas, a 3-year-old, 1.25 miles, but she beat a field that doesn't compare to this field, and she can handle a 1.25 miles, and I think the horses she ran against that day could not. So while, yes, she's proficient at a 1.25 miles, I don't believe she's better at a 1.25 miles. I respect the Connection's decision to make her final career start in this Breeders' Cup Classic. It's 3 times the purse of the distaff, and she's not going to be a much bigger price in here, but I'm concerned with her spinster. Wasn't she supposed to win the spinster if she's going to win this Breeders' Cup Classic? And I just don't like her off her last effort. And while she handles the distance, I just don't know if she's good enough. Now, the horse that I'm going to pick on top in here may very well not be good enough, and that's Owen Dale. And I don't know if we're going to see too many horses in history have the Oklahoma Derby Breeders' Cup Classic double, but this might be the year to do it. Now, Owen Dale's going to have to run faster than he's ever run before, and certainly than he ran in this Oklahoma Derby. But let's not discount his effort in the Travers. Yeah, he finished 5 lengths behind Code of Honor. But he was buried down on the dead inside that day, and it was not Florent Giroux's fault. He broke from the rail, and Florent tried desperately to get off the rail, but Luis Saez was outside of him, and he said, no, I'm keeping you pinned down in there. His effort in the Travers is a lot better than it looks. And Owen Dale could be an improving 3-year-old at the right time, and I don't think he's going to have a problem with a 1.25 miles. He's a little bit slow, but he's also going to be a gigantic price in here in a race that I think might be somewhat wide open, and I'm not convinced of the horses that are going to be short prices. I'm taking a slight shot with Owen Dale. It's a shot. I don't love his chances in here, but I think he could be improving at the right time, and he's the right long shot to at least try to get in the try, so I'll put him on top as a tepid choice, but a big price choice. Let's take a look at one more race, and that's Math Wizard and War of Will running 1st and 3rd in the Pennsylvania Derby. I don't know where the race came from for Math Wiz, but I don't like the Pennsylvania Derby for anybody but Improbable. I thought this was a poor effort by War of Will. He's stalking a slow pace, and he just couldn't get it done. And it seems to me that overall, he may not be good enough. And his Preakness, where he beat my top choice, Owen Dale, was more a function of getting a very good trip. I think the right move with War of Will is to set him the front. But I think the pace is going to be contentious here, and I just don't think he's good enough. I have great respect for Mckinsey. I have great respect for Code of Honor, and I think they are the 2 to beat in here. But I'm going to take a bit of a flyer with the long shot Owen Dale to take a step forward and upset this field at big price. I haven't really talked about Uchida. I thought Uchida actually ran well when he was 4th in this race last year. And he was picking up pieces behind Mckinsey, and maybe he can pick up pieces again. But he just doesn't feel like a winning type against as tough a field as this. And I'm going to side with other horses, but I think Uchida has a chance to get a big piece of this race for trainer Bill Mott, more so than Elate, his other runner. But I'm going to try to upset all of them in the Breeders' Cup Classic, a race that if you join NYRA Bets as a new member, you can get a $25 free bet. Breeders' Cup Classic or the Breeders' Cup Juvenile if you use promo code BC19 to become a new member at NYRA Bets. We'll also match up to $200 of your early play details at NYRABets.com. The Breeders' Cup Classic, it's the big one. It's the last one of a very exciting Breeders' Cup weekend.